The largest pie ever made in the fruit category, that was made by the Oliver Rotary Club in British Columbia. They baked it and it was a cherry pie and it weighed 37,721 pounds. Oh, by the way, today is December 1st, National Pie Day. So today is Pie Day, not to be confused with the other pie, 3.14. We're talking about the dessert. That other day, Pie Day 3.14, that celebrated obviously March 14th, so I'm sure we'll have an episode about that. But Pie Day got its start in 1975, and it was actually a teacher that started Pie Day of all people. His name was Charlie Papazian, and he started it in his classroom with his students, and they celebrated that yearly. But it took 9 years, and then the American Pie Council finally realized what was happening, took note of it, and in 1986, the American Pie Council actually began to sponsor that day. But it wasn't just because of the day that the teacher started, but it was to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Crisco, which is an important ingredient when you're making a pie. I guess we'll find out another day if there's actually a Crisco day or not. Maybe someone wants to start that if there isn't. But there's no reason why Pie Day is December 1st today. It just is, and so we're just going to leave it at that and celebrate the day. Pies, they go all the way back to the times of the pharaohs, actually. The earliest known recipe for a pie was a chicken pie that goes all the way back to 2000 BCE. And these type of bird pies were actually pretty common back then. We'll talk about those in a second. Dessert pastry pies, kind of like we know today, they originated in ancient Greece. And if you go back to the Romans, they actually made meat pastries or a meat pie. And the reason they did that is so the meat wouldn't dry out while it cooked. It kept the moisture in it. So they were known for their meat pies. And in Rome, it was well known that they started roads and among other things, but it was because of those roads that they built that pies were able to spread so quickly through Europe. So because those roads were able to be traveled, people would carry pies along them, the recipes for pies, and soon everyone across Europe was able to enjoy a pie. So we have Rome to thank for that. So here's today's by the way fact, and we're talking about the meat pies again, like I mentioned before. Pies in the 1400s, they contained birds. Songbirds were a delicacy at the time, and we've all heard the expression eat crow. Well, it was during this time period that the term eat crow came about, because it was from the crow pies that the English royalty, the kings, queens, princes, they would eat crow pies. And so that's where that expression came from, was to eat crow. Another by the way fact about that time is that the cooks and the bakers, when they made these bird pies, the fowl pies, they would actually cook a separate bird, the same exact bird that was in the pie, and they would put it on top of the pie. They didn't even bother making a sign, writing out what was on there. They simply just cooked a bird and put it on top so people would know what kind of a pie it was. Seems kind of wasteful, but that's the way they operated back then, apparently. There were pies in medieval England. These were called tarts at the time, and fruit tarts that like these people ate, they were unsweetened because sugar was such a rare good, and it was actually a symbol of wealth. It was usually only the wealthy, rich people that had an abundance of sugar to use. So in medieval England, the wealthy would eat pies, and they would be containing sugar. They were tasty. The peasants, they would eat unsweetened tarts. So there was a class system with what type of a pie you would eat back in medieval England. And pies today, they're actually a big business. There's over 186 million pies sold yearly just in grocery stores alone, not even taking into account bakeries or ones that people make themselves. So lots of pies being consumed when you think about that every single year. So how are we going to celebrate today? Well, one way you could do it, if you want to be pretty extreme, you could travel to Pie Town, New Mexico. That's a real town in the state of New Mexico in the United States. And if you wanted to, you could eat a pie in the town named for the dessert that we're talking about today. You could take the easier route. You could bake yourself a favorite pie of your own, eat it, share it with a friend, a loved one. That's always a easy way to go. You could set it. You could also do this. You could make a pie, set it in your windowsill to cool. We've all seen the old TV shows, movies where people used to do that. Apparently that used to be a thing. So go ahead and have a throwback pie made and sit it in the window, see who can smell it and come over for a slice. If you really want to go crazy, and this is always a fun one, you can make a pie, smash it in someone's face, and say, "Happy Pie Day, jerk." So that's all I have for today. I hope you all have a good Pie Day. Celebrate it any way that you can. Come back tomorrow. We'll have a new day to celebrate together. In the meantime, go to our website, bythewaytodayis.com. You can find old episodes, rate and subscribe to our podcast there, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. If you enjoy By the Way Today Is, please be sure to follow, rate, and subscribe to this podcast. If you have a holiday that you'd like to have talked about, please email it to btwtodayis@gmail.com.